أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والحمد لله الذي جعلني من أمتي سيد المرسلين خاتم النبيين طه وياسين أحمد محمود أبو القاسم محمد ومن المحبين عترة الطاهرين لعنة الدائمين من الآن إلى يوم الدين على أدائهم أما بعد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هل يستوي الذين يعلمون والذين لا يعلمون إنما يتذكر أولو الألباب صلوات Women, in delving straight into the subject today, which is a subject of critical thinking, the ayah that I began with challenges us to think. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, are the ones who know equal to the ones who do not know? Surely only the ones endowed with intellect would remind themselves. And this truly is an inspirational verse as well as a verse that encourages us to seek further knowledge, and not only seek knowledge, but indeed to in fact seek more than knowledge, which is to use our God-given faculty of intellect that we have been given. Just to recap, yesterday we looked at how Nia changes behavior. We then talked about the choices that we make in life, that there is my way, there is His way, and there is Allah's way. And it is Allah's way which is Siratul Mustaqim. And we also said that choices have consequences. This was really in a nutshell what we looked at yesterday, that it is through that thinking that you have the power of what I call intentional living. You make a niyyah to take one step. That's an intention. And you take a step, you have completed the intention. Life is also like that. And we are told about the idea of what a human being should be doing, which is what faith is all about. It is, we say Islam is a way of life. It's a way of going through life. And indeed, we are blessed to be or to belong to the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. This is a school of intellect. It is a school where we are invited to think, and today the entire lecture would be devoted on how to think, when to think, and when not to think. So let's move on to the subject matter. As I said, today we're looking at the power of critical thinking. Inshallah, we'll continue with the lectures now. I'd like to have a little caveat here. Firstly, apologies for the snow that's going to come. I know I brought it, I've been blamed for it, and I take full responsibility for it. The second caveat is that we may not be able to finish all those 9, because I was told that yesterday the pace was a little fast. So I'll try and take it easy, and maybe in some lectures I may not be able to finish the subject matter at hand, so we may not be able to do all the 9. So again, if there's a Trade Descriptions Act here, I take make an exception that we will not be able to finish all the 9. Salawat. So, are the ones who know equal to the ones who do not know? And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us about. And yesterday we pondered upon these words of the Blessed Prophet to say, if doing right pleases and doing wrong displeases, then you are a believer. And that really, to me, is a beautiful prescription of correct thinking. if within you you are thinking and you do something that is not right, your inner soul will tell you, and you will be displeased with yourself. You may put a big smile on your face to show the world, to justify, but your internal system will tell you that there is something wrong here. And Maulana Rum has given a beautiful simile. You know, he talks about a bramble bush. Now, fortunately, you have beautiful ferns here and all that. In Texas, we have these thorny bramble bushes. And you have a small bramble bush, Maulana Rum says, if it's in your way, you can pluck it and you can throw it away and you can move on. If you allow it to grow just a little bit more, it'll block your path because now it's 4 foot tall. You did not take it out. And soon it'll be 9 foot tall and it'll completely block your way. He gives a simile of a bramble bush where he said when you commit the first sin, it may be small, it's like the small bramble bush. It is blocking your path towards goodness, but you have an ability to pluck it out. Meaning you take it out of your system, you repent and you move on. Because Allah is the greatest forgiver of all. And to lose mercy or to lose a hope in His forgiveness is a big sin. So you move on, you say, forgive me, Ya Allah, I will not do it. Small bramble bush, small sin. As you go through life, nafs al-lawama becomes slower and slower within your own self, and that self-blaming soul is no longer blaming you as much, and what happens is that the bramble bush is growing with those sins, bigger and bigger, and finally it'll block your path to forgiveness. And this is the correct thinking prescription, that if doing right pleases you, that's fine. But more importantly, if doing wrong does not displease you, there's something wrong in the system. I need to reset it because I have a problem here. And psychologically, criminals are criminals because that sound within them, that voice, the inner voice, becomes almost dead because they have no feeling, they have no empathy for the feelings of others as to what they're doing to others. So this truly is something that we need to understand. Yesterday we also talked about choices. Well, I'd like to bring this idea of choice with the contemporary topic of Karbala. That what was the difference in the niyyah of Yazid and Imam Hussain alayhi salam? You know, when we are thinking, when we're going through, certain concepts must be very clear to us. Otherwise, we tend to then build on a foundation which is weak, and then every time something happens, we start questioning and we get totally confused, say, but why this? So here, I'd like to explain something. We all know that Imam refuses the bay'ah, the oath of allegiance. Now, how did he refuse? He did not say that I will not make bay'ah of Yazid. Imam never said that. Imam said something much bigger. He said, Mithli, la yubahiu mithlahu. The likes of me cannot make bay'ah to the likes of him. There is a huge difference between Imam personalizing something against Yazid and Imam saying the likes of me will not make bay'ah to the likes of him who is an open sinner. Now, the correct thinking of Imam needs to imbibe in us, because that message is being given to us, because the likes of Yazid, we cannot make bay'ah to the likes of Yazid, because this is what Imam said. It was not a matter between it only, it was a matter between right and wrong. It was a matter which was universal. It was a matter that will continue until the day of judgment, to say the likes of me cannot make bay'ah of the likes of him. So wherever there are likes of Hussein, they cannot make bay'ah. It's a clear choice that Imam was showing us. This was the moral compass. Anyone like me, which means mithli, and mithlahu. And as I said, Imam does not make this as a personal statement. It's a universal lesson for all of us. In a way to say that our thinking must be correct. Many a times Imam refused the bayah. Yes, he did. But how did he do it? What words did he use? How did he think? How did he make us think? And how should our perspective be when we are looking at the history of Karbala? The Blessed Prophet said, and I quote here, that he said that I am not anxious about the incursion of poverty amongst my community. When he says poverty, it's financial poverty. That about which I'm afraid for them, the Prophet says, is crooked thinking, it's warped thinking. And he goes on to say that which poverty of thought will bring my community is much worse than what the economic poverty will bring to the community. We look at the world today, we look at the ummah today, and the poverty of thought, poverty in economic terms. The Muslims have more displaced people. The word refugee is a word that I do not like to use. These are displaced people. 75% of the world's displaced people are Muslims. This is a statistic. This is the state of the ummah. At the same time, how many universities, guess, would there be in Canada? 500? 300 maybe? In the United States, we have 6,000 institutions of higher learning. India has almost 4,000 to 6,000 institutions of higher learning. Do you know that the entire Organization of Islamic Countries, OIC, amongst them, between them, have less than 500 universities? This is the poverty of thought. We are supposed to be the thought leaders. But if there are no institutions which are going to create thought leaders, then the saying of the Blessed Prophet to say it is the incursion of the poverty of thought which is going to be much worse. And this is where we need to take up the cause. Our young must go out and ensure that they are part and parcel of the academia, particularly the Western academia, so that when they come up as professors, when they go into academia, that they will be passing on the values to academia here. And the idea is a PhD is not to earn more dollars. Yes, it makes it easy to earn more dollars if you have a PhD. But the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam teaches us that knowledge is not for dollars. We do not have scholars for dollars. We have scholars, we have academics who go there because it is a love of knowledge. It is the acquisition of knowledge for the advancement of humanity, for the advancement of community. When we just look at education to bring us dollars, we are shortchanging the entire education and the knowledge base that we have. So, this is something that we need to understand about the poverty of thought. Jibreel comes to Hazrat Adam and he brings three things with him: intellect, aql, iman, faith, and haya, morality. Three things. This is in Hadith Qudsi. Three things. And asks Nabi Adam to choose one. And he chooses aql. He chooses intellect. So Jibreel asks Iman and Haya to accompany him to go back. And both refuse to say where there is aql, there will always be Iman and Haya. There will always be faith and morality where there is intellect, where there is aql. And the subject is one of critical thinking and of intellect. And indeed, this is something that we need to ponder upon, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this particular faculty, which the animals don't have. And there are certain faculties that the angels do not have. The human being possesses both the faculties, ones that the angels have and ones that the animals have. Imam alayhi salam has said that God has characterized the angel with intellect without the power of desire and anger. And the animals have been given the power of desire and anger, they have not been given intellect. So you have the angels who have intellect, and the animals have the power of anger and desire. And if you're really interested in this subject, and those of you who study personal development or emotional intelligence, please read a book by Sheikh Ahmad Naraki, which is Jamiu Saada, the collector of felicities, where he talks about the 4 different faculties. The 3 are mentioned here, which is Quwwah Aqliya, Quwwah Ghadabiyya, Quwwah Shahwiyya, and Quwwah Wahamiyya. He adds one more. Study that, and if you see the combination of these different, I don't have time to go into it, but the combination of these different faculties that a human being has is the makeup and the akhlaq of a human being. But back to what Imam alayhi salam has said, that the angels have intellect. They don't have desire, they don't have anger. Animals have anger and desire. The anger is to protect themselves, and the desire is to procreate, which is what we have too as human beings. The angels don't have that. The animals don't have intellect. A human being has been exalted, Imam says, by bestowing upon him all these 3 qualities. That means that we have aql, and we have anger, and we also have the power of desire. Now, the levels of human perfection is such that a human being today stands between the worst of the worst and the best of the best. What do I mean by that? An angel cannot sin. An angel stays where the angel is. He's been given aql. There are no other forces taking the angel to sin. An angel is sinless. An angel is made sinless. Because the angel, all the angel has is aql and intellect. The animals do not have aql, so they are where they are. Now, a human being can either go above the station of angels or below the station of animals. I crave your attention. A human being can go beyond the station of angels, or he or she can go below the state of the animals. Because an angel can do no wrong. Having controlled desire and having controlled anger, if a human being passes through using his aql in the correct way, he is better than an angel because he has mastered those 2 faculties and has risen to the level of beyond the angels, because the angels could not have done what a human being has been able to do. At the same time, animals do not have intellect. Now, a human being having possessed intellect allows the power of desire and the power of anger to overpower intellect, then he goes below the level of the animals. It's a matter of making choices. It's a matter of thinking correctly as to where am I going to go. Can I go beyond the station of the angels by controlling these faculties that I have of carnal desires, of power of possession, trying to earn dunya? They say life is give and take. Most human beings take it as that you give and I take. This is the fitrah that needs to be changed. The desire, the quwwah, the power of desire actually asks you to take and take. And if you can get it by halal means, you will take it. If you cannot get by halal means, then the intellect will work overtime and try and take it by non-halal means. But I must take because I'm a human being. When a child is born, the doctors do not pronounce that infant alive unless that infant screams, right? When the infant screams, then we know there is breath. Well, I look at it this way, that the infant screams to say, "Oh world, beware, I have come to take." I have come to take now because that is my fitrah. But if I am able to overpower that desire of taking, the instinct of taking, into the instinct of giving through my intellect, then I become much more powerful than an angel, and my station is far beyond the station of an angel. Salawat. So I highly encourage you to read the book, and you will understand much more about these various powers, the angelic power and the two other powers. And then you have the Quwwa-e-Wahamiya, which Ahmad Naraki writes, that without Quwwa-e-Wahamiya, without this power of imagination, there would be no painting, there would be no building. You know, human beings have been given that idea of creativity. The balance of these is what makes a human being what he does. And I really, urge you, if you're interested, please do read the book. So, critical thinking then, the subject for today, is a faculty that we share with the angels. And this is what we are discussing today. So, since Allah has given us aql, then thinking is a religious obligation. We must think. Not to do so is to betray our fitrah. And we cannot stop thinking. Try this for 30 seconds. Stop thinking. I dare you. We cannot. The monkey in the mind is always jumping over and over and over again. We cannot stop thinking. You try and meditate, you try so hard. During prayers, you try so hard. It's very, very hard to stop thinking because that's the fitrah. But then when we think, then we need to learn how to think correctly. Many years ago, I was delivering a lecture in Toronto on Adl. And I was asked, where will Mother Teresa go? Where is she going to go? So I said, the question that you have posed bears some critical thinking here. Do you believe in the Adl, the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is a second cardinal principle after Tawheed? It is only the school of Ahlul Bayt that elevates the principle of justice one notch below Tawheed. This is our school. It is a school of justice. This is what we were taught. And the pinnacle of that justice was that Imam Ali alayhi salam demonstrated that justice is such a supreme value. He was brought to court and there was a judge. The plaintiff had put a complaint against Imam Ali alayhi salam. And they were both brought to court. And as was the custom, that the plaintiff and the defendant would sit side by side. So they would be called. So the judge says, oh, Fulan bin Fulan, who was the plaintiff, please come and sit here. And then he said, oh, Ya Abul Hassan, please grace this chair here. And Imam's face frowned. He showed displeasure. So the judge said that, oh, Abul Hassan, is it that you do not like to sit next to the plaintiff? We can organize a special place for you. And Imam said, you didn't understand, did you? By calling him with his name and by calling me with my title, my kunya, you have already shown preference towards me. You are not fit to be a judge. This is the school, the acute school of justice that we are taught by Imam Ali alayhi salam. That even if it is against your interest, you will speak up. This is what Karbala teaches us. So the idea is that if you think correctly, then these things come naturally to you. But if your Quwwa-e-Wahamiya, the power of imagination, tries to deceive you, your aql is going to control it. And this is the school. So, since thinking is not an option, then we must learn how to think correctly. And this is one of the most difficult topics in terms of how we think correctly. Junaid al-Baghdadi was a great scholar in the time of Bahlul. And he goes to Bahlul and says, Bahlul, teach me something. He knew the value of Bahlul, who used to feign madness. He said, teach me something. And Bahlul says, you are such an acknowledged, great scholar. What is Bahlul going to teach you? And Junaid knew the value of Bahlul. Said, no, Bahlul, please teach me something. Teach me something. So Bahlul says, do you know how to speak? So he said, yes, I speak politely. I use the right diction. I use proper grammar. I make sure that my talking is cohesive and so on and so forth. So Bahlul looks at him and says, you don't even know how to speak, and runs away in the jungle somewhere. Junaid chases him. He said, tell me, Bahlul. So he said, do you know how to eat? He said, yes. I make sure that the food that I eat is tahar. It's nutritious. It is clean. He said, you don't even know how to eat, and runs away again into the bushes. Junaid chases him. Third question, to say, do you know how to sleep? He said, yes, I make wuzu before I go to sleep. I make sure I recite all the du'as. I make sure that every provision that I need has been taken care of, and then I go to sleep. And Bahlul says, you don't even know how to sleep. So now Junaid catches him. He said, Bahlul, I will not let you go a step further. Tell me, what have I done wrong? What have I told you that is wrong, that you are displeased and running away? And Bahlul explains, and I'm giving an example of thinking and critical thinking. He said, you can speak with the best of accents. You can use the best of poetry that you may have. The cardinal thing is speak the truth. That is the most important thing. Everything else is a corollary. And he said, you're talking about eating? You will eat food which is, nutritious and so on and so forth. He said, oh Junaid, eat that giza, eat that food which is yours, that there is no gasp in it, it does not belong to somebody else, that not a morsel that you eat belongs to somebody else. That is the meaning of eating. And he said, about sleep, he said, you can recite all the du'as and make ghusl 15 times. What is important is that before you go to sleep, remove that bughs from your heart, remove that hatred from your heart. So when you sleep with a clean heart. This is how we need to continue to think about ourselves and the perspective that we have of ourselves. Salawat. Well, Allah says, La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wusaha. That God does not burden any soul save to its capacity. We've been given the capacity to think, and therefore it becomes incumbent upon us to think correctly. We need to reach conclusions through our own intellectual struggle, not someone else's. And I make this point with a lot of humility. We should not be outsourcing our aql, our intellect, to anybody else. We have been given the power of intellect to think for ourselves. It's a matter of trying. It's a matter of making sure that I'm thinking correctly for my faith, for my akhirah. I want to buy an iPhone or a mobile phone. I will go to Mr. Google 16 times and compare every bit of reviews that are out there and make sure I'm fully educated before I make that informed choice of that purchase. Do we do the same thing for our faith? In terms of thinking correctly and thinking in an intellectual manner. There are two kinds of knowledge as such. You have mathematics, you have logic, you have philosophy, you have theology. These are things that you cannot learn by accepting somebody else's authority. I repeat, so that I'm clear. When it comes to these sciences, which is intellectual knowledge, you cannot take somebody else's word for it. You have to do it through your own struggle, your own intellectual struggle. There is no authority who is going to tell you. You have to discover it by asking the question why. And when you ask the question why, and when you're getting the answers which still leaves you questions in your mind, you should not be bashful of asking questions. I said this yesterday. You do not go from a state of disbelief into belief. You say, I believe, but I want to know, I want to learn, I want to ensure that I'm thinking correctly about this particular Aqidah that I hold. And this is how we just do not accept the answers, but continue to question the answers until we have done our due research and we are comfortable with what we possess. And that is exactly why there is no such thing as taqleed in usul al-din. We teach our children. In usul, there is no taqleed. In matters of Islamic law, in furu, you follow a mujtahid. You follow a learned person in terms of the rules of prayers, in terms of the rules of society, of mu'amalat. But before you can get there, the idea of Tawheed, you cannot say that I believe in Tawheed because my mujtahid told me so. That I believe in the existence of God because my father told me so. This has got to be through my exertion and my way of understanding. So in intellectual sciences, one cannot follow a mujtahid. In furu, in jurisprudence, because these are laws which are derived from there, yes, you need to follow somebody who is more learned. And the concept of taqleed, this is not my subject, but the concept of taqleed is based on following a mujtahid in matters of fiqh, but not in matters of theology, not in matters of usul. So, we follow a mujtahid in what we practice, but not in what you believe in. The belief has to come from ourselves. Example, the idea of tahqiq. You cannot accept that 2 plus 2 is 4 based on somebody else's authority. You have got to understand and be convinced. Although, particularly within the Gujarati societies that we belong to, 2 plus 2 always is a different answer. When you ask a Gujarati that what is 2 plus 2, he will tell you that tamare ketla karwa chhe. How much do you want to make it? But 2 plus 2 is 4 is something that cannot be done on somebody else's opinion. You need to understand it. So, belief with understanding is something that needs to be done. Performing your salat, for example, and we must perform salat. Performing salat does not necessarily mean that I understand the one that I'm praying to. That is going to require an intellectual exertion on my part to try and arrive at that, to say, how can I understand my maker? And in the days to come, we will look at some examples, because Imam alayhi salam has said that if you have contained him in your mind, that is not him, that is not Allah, because he cannot be contained in anything. So how do you understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and what are the ways? Inshallah, we will come to that in the days to come. But right now, the subject is thinking is not an option. Not thinking is not an option. Therefore, we must think. I love that quote by Malcolm Forbes. He says education's purpose is to replace an empty mind with an open one. The empty mind with an open one. It doesn't mean that you fill it with knowledge. The idea is the mind needs to be inquisitive. The mind needs to be open to say, is there another possibility? And you have got to go through that until you understand. Mullah Nasruddin was once sitting under a big tree, a walnut tree. Walnut trees grow very high. And he looked around and he sees a big melon on the ground. And he says, Ya Allah, this little walnut is in this strong, tall tree, and this walnut which needs this strong tree is on the floor, on the ground. And he was questioning, he was thinking about Allah's wisdom, and this is how he was thinking. And suddenly, as he was thinking, a walnut falls on his head. He says, Ya Allah, I now understand why you kept the melon on the ground and that walnut on that tall tree. This is a way of thinking, and there are many. There are many ways that we can demonstrate. I need to move on. There are some very interesting examples of Mirza Ghalib, Umar Khayyam. These are the great thinkers, and how some of their thinking pervaded, and how they justified some of the actions, like how they were drinking and things like that. But I don't have time to go into that, so maybe some other time. But I do want to delve into this particular action. The question always comes of free will and jabr and ikhtiyar, that free will and compulsion. It's a philosophical question, and I crave your attention. Is humankind free in their actions? What kind of freedom do we have in our actions? An example of critical thinking. So when Imam was asked, Imam Musa Kazim alayhi salam was asked, look at how beautifully he explains this idea of free will and compulsion. And he said there are three possibilities to answer that question. Number one, Allah is fully responsible for human actions. I don't do any action. There are some schools of thought who believe that whatever I do, Allah made me do it because He has power over me. So I said one possibility is that Allah is fully responsible for my actions. The second one is that both the human being and Allah are partners in the action. If I do something, then it's me done with Allah because He gave me the power and He's my partner in that. Or the third possibility is that the human being is fully responsible for his or her actions. And then Imam goes on to explain as to how do we think that is humankind free in their actions. And Imam says, okay, if Allah is the originator, if Allah made me do it, and then He punishes me, is that just? He made me do it, then He cannot punish me for it. I will have either no punishment, or He cannot, or He is being unjust. If both partners are in the sin, then this is gross injustice on the part of Allah. Because the stronger partner is now punishing the weaker partner for a sin that they committed together. So Imam says those two possibilities cannot be. Therefore, there is only one possibility, that the human being acts according to his or her own will. We go through these stages of logically thinking through. And again, it all depends. The Aimma alayhimus salam had this gift of being able to explain to people according to their wisdom. Same question was asked, or a similar question was asked to Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam. About, jabr and ikhtiyar, about, free will and compulsion, and what is the level of free will that a human being has. So Imam asked this person to say, lift up, one of your legs in the air. So he lifts up one leg in the air. He said, now lift the other. You can't do it. It's gravity. You cannot lift both the legs. He said, that is what it is. That this idea is that you have certain ways where you have control. There are other ways where natural laws will rule you. This is where Allah has control. Look at the thought and the thinking that goes through when we exercise that intellect of something simple as, is humankind free in their actions? And philosophers have spent their lives trying to do this. So, let's think critically for a minute, and I'll move on. If Allah did do something unjust, for example, we're talking about justice, then either He did it knowingly, or He did it unknowingly, or He was forced to do it. Three things. If He did it knowingly, then that makes Him zalim. If He did it unknowingly, it makes Him jahil. And if He was forced to do it, it makes Him muhtaj. Now when we look at the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is none of those things. He is neither zalim, nor jahil, nor muhtaj. Therefore, the justice of Allah is understood on the basis of that He is the just, and this is how we understand the concept of adala. Salawat. Mu'minin, let us recite one more salawat. Tonight, Mu'minin, and we will continue with the critical thinking and how we move on with this. But in the interest of time, and it is a weekday, I'd like to go through a scenario on the 3rd of Muharram. This is the time when Imam alayhi salam arrives at a place where he stops, the horse stops. And he asks around to say, what place is this? And he was told that this is a place called Shat al-Furat. And Imam says, is there any other name for this place? And Imam was told that the name of this village is also called Akr. Akr means a wound. And Imam said, well, we seek refuge with Allah, with Akr, with destruction. And then Imam says, does it have any other name? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Yes, Mu'mineen. This was a place that was named as Karbala. And he was told that this place is also called Karbala. It comes from Karb, which is sorrow, and Bala, which is tribulation. Mu'mineen, Imam arrives, and there he stops and he makes a statement. He embeds his spear into the sand, and I'd like to quote because I do not like to paraphrase. This is quoted in Maqtal al-Hussein, where Imam says, and these are his exact words translated in English, he says, here is the place where our blood will flow, where our women will become captives, where our children will become orphans and will be scattered across the plains. We will be buried here, and from here we will be raised to the day of resurrection. This is what Imam does as he lands upon the soil of Karbala. What does he do next? It's a tradition that we follow wherever we move to any new country. We go and make sure that we have enough land to bury our dead. This is exactly what Imam does. When he arrives in Karbala, he calls the local tribe of Banu Asad, and he buys the land from them. And then he instructs them to say that a day will come, that there will be many guests who will come. Serve them for 3 days. Perhaps Imam was foreseeing the day that without water for 3 days, him and his family suffered on the plains of Karbala, that people who come to visit, the Zawar who go there, are treated not like he was treated, but they were treated with water, they were treated with hospitality. Mu'mineen, this is Karbala, and Imam arrives here. Mu'mineen, कुछ अल्फाज उर्दू में कि जब लोगों ने ये कहा कि मौला इस ज़मीन को करबो बला भी कहते हैं, मोमिनीन, जब करबला का नाम सुना, इमाम ने ठंडी आहें भरी और घोड़े से उतर पड़े और फरमाया कि जिसकी खबर मेरे नाना ने दी थी उस ज़मीन पर मैं आ पहुंचा, अब हमारा सफ़र जो है वो तमाम। مومنین بنی اسد کے قبیلوں کو بلا کے امام کچھ گفتگو کرتے ہیں اور کہتے ہیں کہ پہلی شرط یہ ہے میں خریدوں گا، مگر پہلی شرط یہ ہے کہ میری قبر کا نشانہ پوچھتا آئے اس کو بتا دینا اور اسے اچھی طرح پیش آنا۔ مومنین لوگ دوسرے سفر کی تکلیفیں اٹھا کر ہماری بہت سے یہاں زوار آئیں گے، میرے زوار کو تکلیف اور تکلیفیں مت دینا۔ اور مولا نے کہا کہ 3 دن مہمانوں کو رکھنے کی وصیت کی۔ اس کے بعد مومنین سب آپ سن سکو گے الحاظ مولا نے قبر کی جگہ تو لے لی، مگر یہ خیال ہے کہ اے حسین قبر کی جگہ تو لے لی مگر دفن کون کرے گا؟ ارے جوان بیٹا بھی نہ ہوگا جو باپ کی لاش قبر میں رکھے۔ کچھ دنوں کے بعد پھر بنی اسد کے قبیلوں کو بلایا اور کہا کہ جب وہ سب آگے کہا بھائی عباس مردوں کو ایک طرف رکھو، عورتوں کو الگ کرو، بچوں کو ایک طرف بٹھاؤ۔ بعد امام علیہ السلام نے مردوں سے خطاب کہا کہ بھائیو میں اس سرزمین پر قتل کیا جاؤں گا اور لاش بے گور و کفن پڑی رہے گی، جب لشکر چلا جائے تو آ کر ہمیں دفن کر دینا۔ اور پھر عورتوں سے خطاب کر کے کہا کہ سنو حسین جس طرح ان کا مہمان ہے اسی طرح تمہارا بھی مہمان، اگر تمہارے مرد عمر سعد کے خوف سے ہمیں دفن نہ کرے تو ہماری جانیں صدقے ہو جائے مولا کی مظلومیت پر کہ عورتوں سے خطاب کرتے ہیں کہ تم ہمیں مردوں کو آمادہ کرنا اور ہمیں دفن کرنا۔ مومنین سن سکو گے آخری کتاب کہ جب بچوں کی طرف امام دیکھتے ہیں اور کہا کہ اگر آپ کے والدین ہمیں دفن نہ کر سکے تو اپنی چھوٹی چھوٹی مٹھیوں میں کچھ چیزیں لے کے ہمیں دفن کرنے کی کوشش کرنا۔ مومنین یہ حالات تھے کربلا میں۔ جب امام حسین علیہ السلام کربلا پہنچتے ہیں بس ہائے افسوس مومنین، صرف عصر عاشور کے بعد ایک منظر اپنی بات تمام کرتا ہوں کہ لوگ دفن کرنا تو بہت دور تھا، ارے وہ شیشمائے جس کی حسین نے اپنے ہاتھوں سے دفن کیا تھا، حضرت علی اصغر کو اس کو بھی اشکیاء نے قبر سے نکالا اور سر قلم کیا۔ انا للہ و انا الیہ راجعون۔ ماتم حسین۔